Hello everybody, and welcome to another video. Today, we talk about who you should be pulling in the 3.7 update. Recently, Honkai Star Rail just revealed that they're going to be bringing back 7 characters for the 3.7 update. Quite ironic. And this will make your decision, well, quite frankly, a lot harder. So today, my goal is to help you choose who to pull. So if you enjoy videos like these, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and boys, let's talk about who you should pull. And why don't we start off with the most controversial character of the update, without question, and the special banner character, and that's gonna be Cyrene. I'm gonna speak in objectivity about this character, and there's gonna be a lot of speculation in this section because the information that we currently have right now on the character is pretty limited, but I'm gonna give you all the pros and cons of the character, and then you can hopefully make the decision for yourself. So first, I'm gonna tell you what all the worries are with the character. Cyrene is a character who currently the general consensus is that she's not going to be future-proof. She works specifically with Cryos heirs and has specific buffs for each of them. And obviously after the 3.x updates are done, we aren't going to be getting any more Cryos heirs. So her ability to work with future characters is put into question. The second concern that comes up when we talk about Cyrene is her inability to generate energy. From what we've seen and what we know, she seems to have a struggle with generating energy for her ultimate without gaining access to her limited Eidolons, which obviously makes her way higher cost. So unless you are somebody who was already planning to pull an E2, well then that makes the character a lot harder to pull because a lot of her strength is locked behind Eidolons. And then, of course, the third concern is that she's not going to work with previous characters that have already come out that aren't Cryos heirs. People are worried that she only works in very specific team calls, like teams with Phainon or teams with Castorice, like they showcase here. Now, after telling you all that, you may be a little worried about pulling for Cyrene, and I think your worries are justified, but I'm going to tell you exactly what she does, regardless of all that. So, Cyrene is a character who is pretty objectively good, even with all of her issues. Her basic attack is a basic attack, but her skill still gives a true damage buff to all your allies, making it so they all do true damage with their attacks, which is still a pretty decent buff. Next up, her ultimate fully charges all of your other characters' ultimates in its first use, and you're going to make Cyrene have an enhanced bow attack. On top of that, it also summons her Memo Sprite, which can give Cryos heir specific buffs. So, for example, we saw in the live stream that Memo Sprite Cyrene gives to Phainon is that his ult is unlimited. There's going to be more buffs like this from my understanding. The only ones they showcased in the live stream were the Castorice and the Phainon one, but both of them look to be pretty strong. We're going to have to kind of wait to see what more of her specific buffs are like. But from what I saw in this live stream, she looks to be pretty decent with Castorice and also pretty good with Phainon as well. But I think the big question is she worth pulling? And that's a hard question to answer because I think it kind of differentiates from account to account. A lot of people say that if you already own a Tribbie, and especially a Tribbie E1, then the pulling value of Cyrene goes way down because she almost is equal to Tribbie already in that Castorice comp. And of course, on top of that, there's all the worries about her being future-proof and how will she work with 4.0 units. So there's a ton of worry around her. So right now, I think it varies from player to player, but I would still say overall, she's a decently strong unit and definitely still up there with some of the better supports in the game. So for my final conclusion on if she's worth pulling, I would say yes. If you have a lot of the Cryos heirs and you have characters to pair with her, then I think she can be valuable, especially if you lack a character like Tribbie. For right now, she's strong, but will she be in the future? That's a question yet to come. So I think that's a decision you'll have to make for yourself. It's kind of hard to predict, but nonetheless, that's my conclusion on Cyrene. And let's talk about the other, 6 characters, because there's a lot to talk about here. That's right. Alongside Cyrene, they reran basically every single Cryos heir with a couple exceptions. They didn't do Hyacine, Cyrene, or Aglia, I believe, but they reran the other 6 of them. So there's a ton of characters to choose between. Now, I will say, I think this is an update where I would highly recommend saving Jades because 4.0 is just around the corner, and that means a meta change is just around the corner, if we're being completely honest. And so before talking about any of these characters, I really do want to emphasize, I do think there is a reality where it is worth it to save Jades this update. If anybody remembers 3.0, when 3.0 ran around, the meta almost completely changed, and a lot of the characters that you would build up from the 2.x updates became really nuanced or not necessarily as useful as they used to be. And I think that's likely to happen again with 4.0. So saving your Jades at the end of this update instead of going for one of those Cryos airs that you missed may be a decent decision, because we don't know what the 4.x meta is going to look like. So possibly holding on to your Jades could be something worth considering. However, there are some really good characters that I want to talk about that I do think are worth pulling and that are pretty future-proof. And the character is Hyacine. Hyacine is a character that, from my opinion, is probably the most valuable pull of this update. She is by far the best healer in the game and power creeps every healer by a crap ton. And I think Hyacine's a character where even if she were to get power crept, she would still be a valuable pickup, because healers are always something you're going to need in the latest endgame, no matter what. She's the best in slot healer for a frick ton of the latest teams. If you have a Castorice, Hyacine is almost a requirement. So I would say if you are investing in that team, get a Hyacine, finish it out. She works basically with pretty much every DPS in the game. She's a pretty universal healer. You can fit her in almost every comp. She's not the best in slot for every comp, but she's still good in pretty much every single composition in the game. And right now, currently, she's kind of a requirement for a lot of the latest endgame. Like, if you want to beat AA, at least the end level, Hyacine is a huge help there. Gigantic help. Same thing with Lightcons in the latest MOC. So, at least for right now, she's super good. I also see her being good in the future. So, I do think she is one of the more valuable pickups. If you do lack good sustains on your account, or if you have a Castorice. So that would be my first recommendation. Second one to talk about is Castorice. She's a character probably most of y'all have anyway, because she was the most pulled character, I believe, in the 3.x updates. And for good reason. She's pretty ridiculously strong. She's quite OP right now. Future-proof, I don't want to call it too soon, because I think there is some reality where she may fall off. But right now, she's super good. Super, super good. She has the sickest animations in the game. And she's a character whose cost to use her is quite low, I want to say. Yes, Hyacine is her best in slot, but you can get a Luocha for free, and he works here too. He's not better than Hyacine by any means, but he's still a viable option. And then you have RemTB, who's a free character. There are better options like Tribbie, but RemTB is still a perfectly viable option here. And then you can use Evernight, maybe Cyrene here, maybe a Tribbie. And there's lots of options for that third slot. So her cost is actually relatively low. And currently, in most of the end games, she completely demolishes them. She does. Because a lot of the bosses are designed around her kit. So that's my full opinion on Castorice. On to the next one, and I'm going to try not to show my bias here, but we have to talk about Tribbie. Frick. You guys know I don't like Tribbie. But that doesn't change the fact that she's still a very, very good unit. A universal support who is somebody who is also definitely worth considering. She gives a huge zone, which increases all enemies' damage taken. She gives all type res pen. She's literally just a good support with everybody in the game. And currently, right now, among all the harmonies, I would argue she's probably the best one. Although it pains me to admit. She works with a variety of teams. She works with Castorice. She works with Phainon. She works with Thurda. She works with Saber. She works with Archer. Like, there's so many DPSs you can use her with. So, like, no matter what, there's somewhere where you can fit Tribbie on your account, which I think makes her a valuable pickup for right now. Those are my thoughts on the child. I don't want to talk about her anymore, so we're going to move on swiftly. On to big old Kekvin. Or Phainon. Phainon is a character with a lot of value. He's somebody, again, who is very popular on his release and is arguably the second to first best DPS in the entire game. I will say he does feel a little higher cost to use than Castorice does, just because he requires a lot of supports in order to use them, a lot of 5-star supports. And obviously with the release of Cyrene, he's going to get a lot better in that regard, because you're going to have another option as a support for him. There are some free-to-play options for Phainon, like Tingyun is an okay option. She's not bad, but she's still not the best. Phainon is a character that you generally want to run sustainless. So you want to run 3 supports on him And if you don't have the right supports, he becomes a lot more nuanced. So having characters like Bronya, Ceridra, Tribbie, Sparkle, and Sunday is very important for him, which makes him a lot more of a high-cost unit. Does that make him a bad unit? Absolutely not. He's very valuable. He retains all of the supports, buffs given to him in his ult. And now with the addition of Cyrene, if you choose to get her, he gets quite literally the infinity ult. So if you pick up Cyrene plus Phainon, that will be pretty overpowered. But again, it's quite high cost and not everybody can afford that. So I don't think that's a realistic expectation for everybody, but it's definitely an option if you want to. I think overall, Phainon could definitely be worthwhile on your account, depending on what supports you have to take advantage of him. But if you lack those certain supports, I would say I would probably hold off on him. And now we're getting down to my 2 least recommended pulls of the update, which is Cipher and Mydei. Now, we have yet to see how these 2 characters are going to work with Cyrene. So maybe Cyrene beside them might give them a lot more value. But I would say paired with everybody else that's coming with this update, these 2 would hold the lowest value. Not that that makes them bad units by any means. These are still 2 perfectly strong units. And if you just like them, they can definitely be a worthwhile pickup for your account for sure. They're not by any means bad units. It's just put beside Hyacine, Tribbie, Castorice, and Phainon, where I think you look at them to be just a little bit lower. Cipher on release was one of the least pulled characters in the game, but I think she still proved her worth when she came out and people realized, oh no, she's actually a pretty decent unit. Mydei was kind of in the same boat where he wasn't a very highly pulled unit, but after his release, I think a lot of people realized, oh no, this guy's pretty good. Mydei is essentially the bot unit where you don't control his action. He just kind of moves on his own and just goes in and out and in and out of his E skill. He's HP scaling. You need a good healer with him. With Cipher, she's essentially a sub DPS that works with a variety of the early 2.0 characters, but also some of the late 3.0 characters as well. Starting off with Mydei, the important thing for Mydei is having a good healer. So Luocha, Gallagher's a good option, and of course Hyacine as well is a decent option. He's also a character that needs relatively good supports to work with him, so having somebody like a Sunday is definitely going to be super important for a Mydei comp. Again, Tribbie's another valuable character in that comp, and Cyrene has some possibility to have value in that comp as well. Comparatively to his betters, Phainon and Castorice generally considered to be better DPSs, but that by no means makes him bad. He's still perfectly viable in a majority of the end game right now. If you just want a strong, muscular man to hold you, honestly, get him. But if you're looking for the optimal of the optimal, then I don't highly recommend Mydei as a pickup, especially 4.0 just around the corner, and the HP meta is probably going to be going away a little bit. So that's my full opinion on Mydei. Next up is Cipher. Cipher is a perfectly good unit. She was made to kind of pair the gap between 2.0 and 3.0 to make characters like Acheron and Phainon a little bit better. So if you own those 2 DPSs, she becomes a lot more valuable. But she also works in the Castorice comp. She can work with Archer. There are good DPSs for her. Again, generally in the best comp in the entire game, which is the Castorice comp right now, she does have better options like Tribbie. That doesn't change the fact that Cipher still works perfectly fine. And if you're not really too worried about getting the most optimal anomaly arbitration clears and you just want to be able to beat MOC, then that character is still very valuable. If you want to make some of your early 2.0 characters better, like Acheron, or maybe your Phainon, then Cipher can also be a worthwhile pickup in that regard as well. She's also just fun to move around the map with because she has the high speed skill, which is really fun to move around with. And she's a cat as well, so if you just like her for that, then you could pull a Cipher as well. And that pretty much covers every Cryos heir. To discuss the last thing, which I want to discuss, which is should you pull Eidolons or Lightcons, I'm just going to discuss the most valuable ones and then tell you if they're worth it or not. Cyrene's Lightcon, unfortunately, we don't have any information on this yet. I don't know the specifics of this, so I cannot comment on Cyrene's Lightcon. But the rest of them, I can talk about each of these. Tribbie, straight up, you don't need her Lightcon. S5 DDD is great for her. Her Lightcon's definitely good, but S5 DDD is also perfectly fine on her. And this is a free Lightcon, so I don't think Tribbie needs her Lightcon. Cipher definitely has one of the better Lightcons, especially if you're running dot comps. So if you're using Kafka, Silverwolf, and other characters, Cipher's Lightcon is actually best in slot for them. And of course, Cipher herself as well. So if you just love Dot, I actually highly recommend picking up this Lightcone because it can be very fun in those teams. Next up, Hyacine Lightcone. Very solid Lightcone, except I don't think it's necessarily required for Hyacine. It has some value, but I don't think it's required or needed. It should not be one of your highest priorities. Castorice has a very, very good Lightcone. I think this is one of the higher priority Lightcones I would go for. She does have other good options, but Castorice is a character where unfortunately most of her Lightcone options are pay gated anyways behind battle passes and other stuff, which kind of sucks. And this Lightcone basically outscales all of your other options by quite a bit. So it's probably one of the more valuable ones. Phainon has a pretty decent Lightcone as well. It's not required, but it's definitely better for him. It's about a 30% damage increase between his signature and the next best option, which is free to play, which would be On the Fall of an Ion. Mydei is the exact same thing. It's about a 30% damage increase between his Lightcone and then using a free to play one, which his best one would be a Secret Vow. So just keep in mind, you do have free to play options, but they aren't nearly as good as the signatures. So that's my full opinion on pulling Lightcones. You can do it, but you don't need to. They're big power spikes for a lot of characters, but they're not required for all of them. So me personally, I wouldn't go for Lightcones, but to each their own. The last part we're going to talk about quickly is Eidolons. Just going over the most valuable ones. I'm not going to go over every character's Eidolons. A lot of them are them specific. And if you want to pull them to make them more powerful, you have that option. But the ones that are actually going to do stuff for your account and have the most value is the Tribbie E1. The Tribbie E1 is by far the best Eidolon in the entire game. This is the only Eidolon I would recommend pulling for this update, unless you're really invested in these other characters and making them more powerful, like Phainon, Cipher, or Mydei. Their Eidolons are still super good and give them a huge damage buff, among other things. So you can pull this to make them more powerful, and it will boost your account. But if you want the most universal damage buff that's most likely to help you in the future, then pulling Tribbie E1 would certainly be your best option. So that's my full thoughts on Eidolons. If you want them, you can get them. Don't highly recommend them, but they're out there. So anyways, boys, that's my full opinion on who you should pull in this update. If this video helped you, I really appreciate if you could subscribe. And I'm going to see you all in the next one. Peace out.